Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Read Show.
What it do, baby? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Read Show right here on the Barroom Network. Remember, you can catch all our previous shows on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes under the Barroom Network tab, and follow us on social media. Follow me at The Real Evan Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Read. Mm-hmm. And a good day to you, sir, in your new home. We were just talking about the plates behind you. Congrats, first of all. It's always great to find a new home. And you were telling me about all of these different plates, and Ross was telling me that they are each from a different location.
They're from a location, yeah. So what my wife and I started a tradition about over 12 years ago now, where every time we would visit somewhere new, we would get a souvenir plate from that specific location. It was a must on the list for every time we traveled. So behind me over my shoulder are just a few of the plates. We probably have about 15 to 17 total. There's Arizona in the corner, Montreal, Korea, Barcelona, Denver, Rome, Puerto Rico right there. And then I got Madrid over there and Vegas and New York and a couple from California and Puerto Vallarta and Dominican Republic, a whole bunch of places.
And was Korea romantic? What were your thoughts there?
So Korea, one of April's good friends from college, her father is a brigadier general in the Army. And the reason why we went to Korea is he was stationed out there and he invited all of us to go and to visit. So that was a trip that we all went. We also saw him get inaugurated as brigadier general at the Pentagon. There is a DC plate up there somewhere. So, you know, he's been all over the world and he's invited all of us to some of the different places that he's been stationed at. It's actually really cool. He's a true military guy. Thank you, of course, to his services to Brigadier General Dunn and for inviting us out to Korea.
On the heels of Memorial Day, thank you for his service. Indeed. Yeah, that's a reason to go to Korea.
Brutal flight.
On the I bet that's probably the worst out of the places you mentioned. I would imagine
it was. Yeah, that's the longest I've been on a flight. I mean, I've been to Spain twice, and Italy, which was not that bad. Yeah, but that's the one.
Yeah. If people have not seen, you were in North Korea, you said?
Yeah, no, South Korea.
South Korea. I didn't think you were North Korea.
Say, we don't get allowed in North Korea. If I was in North Korea.
Yeah, I would rather go to South Korea.
I would have got the Brittany Griner treatment. I would have been stuck there.
What's this medicine you have, sir? Your ass would have been not allowed to come back. All right, packed show today, guys. All of Ross's plates aside, and Jordan, the motherland, Puerto Rico. But we are talking about the Bears to lead off. More off-season headlines. The NBA Finals is set. Celtics and Warriors tipping off tomorrow. And that should be exciting. The young and up-and-coming team realizing their potential against the Warriors with a lot of playoff experience. That's very exciting. We'll touch on the Cubs and Sox and other headlines as well. You know, Brady and Mahomes and Allen and all of them are teeing off in that golf match in Vegas right now. It'll be interesting to see how they all do. I think Mahomes is drinking already. Not a sign that he's doing well. Josh Allen golfing with the shirtless Tom Brady ball, which is outstanding. And talk about Ray Liotta unfortunately leaving us, and talk about his legacy, which is a great one. And then we'll have a top 5, which we'll be doing every week, and stay tuned for that. It is Top Gun related, perhaps.
Ooh, one of my favorite actors.
Absolutely.
It's a great
So let's dive
combination.
into it, Ross. I mean, the
Yeah.
biggest news with the Bears, as far as this recent week or so, is we knew that he was probably on his way out the door and testing free agent waters, and he just signed a year-long $10 million deal. That would be Akeem Hicks,
Mhm.
the center of that Bears defense for a while there. Tough dude, such a great presence in the locker room and on the field, one of the most vocal guys, and you rooted for him through injuries and his experience. Man, he's getting up there now too. But at this point, you got to go chase a ring. It's great to go to a contender like that on a defense that has some youth and really good experience. He'll clog the middle. It looks like Ndamukong Suh will be gone. He'll be a rotational guy. He'll be there as much as he can play, 50% of the snaps or whatever, 40%. So we knew that was going to be a loss for the Bears anyways, and kind of just seeing what you have at nose tackle and the rest of that defensive line going forward. But yeah, I wish him nothing but the best. I think any Bears fans would agree.
Yeah, listen, Akeem Hicks was, one of our favorite free agent signings that Ryan Pace did. He came from, his days as New Orleans Saint and then New England Patriots, who, I thought the New England Patriots made a mistake by letting him go. I think it's one of the trail of mistakes that Bill Belichick has made over the years and kind of fine tuning that roster, which led to Tom Brady eventually leaving and going to Tampa Bay, which now Akeem Hicks will be paired up with him again. I think Akeem Hicks embodied a Bears being a Bears football player, that the black and blue division, the monsters of the Midway. He was hard nosed. He was very passionate football player, and I think he loved his time in Chicago. And there's no hard thoughts or anything. We wish him all nothing but the best. He did the right thing. He's going to a team that is a Super Bowl contender and has a need for him because Ndamukong Suh is gone, but also he doesn't have to play every snap on the field, which I don't think he can at this point in his career. Primarily a rotation guy, but anytime you get to line up next to the line is super nasty for Tampa. And I'm happy for Akeem Hicks versus community, and we'll see how much it's going to him for him to finish his career with the Bears. But he has to do what's best for him right now, and that's go chase a final check and go chase a ring. I will be remiss to completely off topic, but we did find out a couple minutes ago before the show. Rest in peace to Marion Barber, former Chicago Bears running back.
Yeah.
Former Dallas Cowboys standout as well. The Bears unfortunately have lost quite a few ex-running backs over the years, but rest in peace to him. He was found dead in his apartment. We don't know any of the details. Not that it matters. We just thoughts and prayers to his family. But back to Akeem Hicks. Yes, absolutely. Back to Akeem Hicks. It was the right move for him. And, we found out today, too, that the Bears, made the June 1st cuts official with Danny Trevathan and Tariq Cohen. And those are two other guys that we wish nothing but the best for as well. And it just, it's a little somber because you wish that era of Bears football ended a little better than what it did.
Yeah, no question. I think, the bright side of, the departure of Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack money, it's the Bears and their cap space is a good story right now where, they have a ton of cap space. They're sitting at a good amount, I should say. Active spending, dead money, all of that has just come a long way from where it was when they're bottom of the league as far as that's concerned. So that, paves the way for with these rookies if they pan out and the youth of this team, Roquan Smith going to get a big deal and obviously paying Eddie Jackson a lot of money. We'll see what happens with that. But, of these, it's kind of that dead time right now where we're there's OTAs and mini camps just around the corner and rookie workouts and all this. And so you're just hearing a little bit from the beat reporters right now. But what else are you looking for within the summer? I know that I personally, again, that offensive line is going to be so hopefully not terrible to watch just based on the recent history of that unit. And blame Ryan Pace, blame injuries, blame whoever. But a big part of that line is going to be Tevin Jenkins. And I know that he has a big chip on his shoulder, how he wants to perform after having that surgery and missing a lot of his rookie campaign and then coming back and and playing some snaps and playing like a rookie. And you got to take your lumps. And Justin Fields would be the first guy to say that. Any vet in the NFL would say that as well. Certainly rooting for him. I'm rooting for guys in new uniforms, guys, from Green Bay Packers, for instance, coming over and making their impact felt, and then hopefully working from inside out and building some cohesion. And what we've talked about that's important for Justin Fields going into the season is providing him protection and consistency and providing him a pocket so he's not scrambling like he was at Ohio State or for most of the Bears season last year.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of touch on, the Bears offensive line, I think starting with Tevin Jenkins first, it was great to see that story come out this week about how he's lost all that weight already. And, me, my background is in health and fitness. And, coming off those catastrophic back injuries that he had, out of college and to start his career in the NFL, I thought that the last regime for the Bears were doing him a disservice by allowing him to carry that much weight. I know Juan Castillo last year wanted his offensive lineman a lot bigger on the field, whereas Ryan Poles and this regime wants them leaner and quicker and faster. And I never like it when a young man, especially with major back issues like that, is just constantly heavy, and he carried too much weight for his frame. I think that was a detriment to how he played on the football field. I think that was a detriment to how he was recovering from back issues and back surgery and stuff like that. And I'm really excited to see a much leaner, slimmer Tevin Jenkins. I think he's going to be a lot better football player on the football field. Listen, I think we're past the days of when your offensive linemen were these big fat guys in the field who just had to kind of come off the ball and just stand there and kind of do a pancake guy, kind of like Orlando Pace. Even though Orlando Pace is a first ballot Hall of Famer, but they don't really make offensive linemen like that anymore. These guys are jacked. These guys are strong. These guys are able to be agile and move their feet, and they have to keep up with a lot of these pass rushers that, A, you don't know where they're coming from, and B, these guys are now 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds. You look at the other Josh Allen in Jacksonville, you see a guy like that coming off the edge of some of these other premier pass rushers, and you got to be able to be able to get out there and get to them pretty quickly. And he couldn't do that, in my opinion, carrying that much weight. So I'm happy to see him lean down. Other thing I'm happy to hear out, as we look at a lot of the stuff out in OTAs right now is, we talked about it last show, the Bears, working on Justin Fields' footwork, allowing him to also, kind of shorten up his delivery a little bit. But, Doug Farrar, tweeted out yesterday that Justin Fields had a perfect passer rating when he was on the move on rollouts on play action, and I think that Luke Getsy is going to work a lot on that with Justin Fields. Get this young man out on the move, get him out on the edge, and allow him to play to his strengths more. And I think those are the things that you have to hope to see going forward. I think also when you do have questions on the offensive line, the best thing that you can do is move the pocket for a mobile quarterback like Fields, which will buy him some more time to get out to these young weapons that need to develop.
Yeah, that's a whole question in itself too, along with the offensive line. And talking about Tevin Jenkins, I agree with you completely with how offensive linemen just need to be, it's about quick feet to an extent. It's about the lower man winning in the trenches there too. And I think that Tevin Jenkins, there's something to be said for that flexibility, like guys incorporating yoga and incorporating Pilates. Look what it did for Jake Arrieta. But look, building that muscle and making it lean muscle and flexibility is so important to avoid injury again, from that fitness background that you're talking about, Ross. It's important for a guy who had that back injury too, to avoid another setback like that. So, and for Fields to practice that footwork, obviously it's going to start with those offensive linemen. I think Cody Whitehair is going to be important. Is he that guy who's kind of like the lone vet of this team, of this unit? And then around him, it's just, he's been playing everywhere in the line. He's played some center, and then Dakota Dozier and Larry Barroom, Lucas Patrick, all new faces on this line. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, when you're talking about Fields, and it's about reps at this point, it's a new clean slate with Luke Getsy and all these new weapons too. When clearly it wasn't really working as far as Allen Robinson is concerned, talking about, shedding some cap space earlier too, a guy who wasn't going to come back. You're looking at a mix of Darnell Mooney and Byron Pringle and Velus Jones Jr. So you have some speed, you have some youth, and for for a certain number of these guys, it'll be a good opportunity for them to be his security blanket. And they're going to go up against some great talent too. When you talk about the rookies and vets too, with Eddie Jackson, Jaquan Brisker, and Jalen Johnson, Duke Shelley. I think it's a good challenge for the skill position players, those wide receivers, I should say, going up against the secondary. So we're going to see very quickly, what the consensus is. You can't tell a lot from training camp, obviously, but it's so vital, I think, still, even with the lack of full pad practices, because you want to avoid what has been a big theme over the last several years, I feel like, which is a guy tears his ACL in training camp, or a guy blows out his knee in a non-contact drill. So, you got to hope for the best, but you still got to go hard, because it's very important, especially for these rookies. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah. One name to keep an eye on too is Eagles, interior lineman Isaiah Sumalo. He's a potential cap casualty right now. He's got a lot of experience with Ian Cunningham, who's the assistant general manager right now for the Bears. He's a guy that fits their scheme and fits what they're looking for. So I think that he's got an opportunity to get released here very soon. And if he does, I would expect the Bears to kind of take a flyer on him and bring him in just as more competition for that interior line spot, and it's much needed right now. I know the Bears also made another front office move today. They hired Krithi Chandraskian. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
But that is their new director of football analytics. Krithi spent 3 years with the Kansas City Chiefs, so obviously a relationship with new general manager Ryan Poles, and it just goes to show how not only football but all of sports has embraced the analytic sides of things, and it's not just about X's and O's anymore, but these guys look at a lot of data, they look at a lot of numbers, and that dictates how they run plays on the field and who they put on the field. And as many smart people in the room as possible, you'll take it, and especially if they're coming out of that Chiefs organization, which has been extremely successful for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's a good point there. It's all about the data now. You look at any sport, and it's super important. Tape is always, every time these guys go to the sideline, they got a tablet in their hands and they're looking at what just happened. They're still scouting. If you're on defense, you're looking at the offense, and vice versa. So it's that's definitely a good hire, it sounds like.
Moneyball isn't just a movie with Brad Pitt in it.
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, you gotta crunch those numbers. The analytics are super important. So with we talked about the offense at length. I know you don't want to give a lot of predictions because it's so early, but there's got to be improvement, right? I think with Fields, and even looking at the NFC North, if you just want to put it there as opposed to the rest of NFC and NFL. But where do you see them ranking? Up a brand new offense for obviously Justin Fields and Luke Getsy. A lot of these guys fitting in for the first time across the board, from quarterback to tight end. And I'm wondering, we gave predictions as far as Justin Fields, and mine were super blue sky. And I'm very hopeful that he has a good jump in that second year. But again, a lot of it is dependent on his supporting cast. So where do you think they're going to be? Are they going to be better than Detroit? That's all I want to know right now.
I hope so, right? Listen, I think the Bears, football is a very fickle sport, and things, 1 to 5 plays a game can obviously change the outcome of a football game. So I won't put an exact record number on on what they'll be at this year, but I do think that they'll be anywhere between that 7 to 10 game range. And like I said, 2 or 3 plays a game can make all the difference between, are you going to win 8 games or 9 games or 10 games? But I do think they're going to fall in that range right there. And, I've always preached, more importantly than wins and losses is Justin Fields the guy? Is he the guy that steps up and shows you that he can lead this football team and lead this offense and kind of uplift a lot of these younger guys that they have on the team right now? And if as long as they come out this season, let's say they win 7 ball games and they come out this season saying that Justin Fields unquestionably is the guy, I'm okay with that, because you go into the offseason with a ton of cap space, you get your first round pick back, and then all of a sudden it's like it's game on. You're building a foundation to where going forward you hope that you can really build off of and start making these playoff runs. So, I still hold on to that 7 to 10 win range. They have a fairly easy schedule, quote unquote. You never know what the schedule is really until you start seeing it from a week to week standpoint and seeing who's out there, and there's always some surprises. But they got tough teams on the schedule. Your Buffaloes of the world. Playing within the division, going to Green Bay on a Sunday night week 2 is very difficult. Having a bye week later is tough too. But let's just hope that they can stay relatively healthy and start to gel together. And like I said, Justin Fields takes a big step, because even if it's only an 8-win season, that is 100% worth it for me.
Yeah, agreed there. I think, the offense, certainly you look at your direct competition, and there's some, there's up and down quarterbacks as in Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff, and then the king of the North currently in Aaron Rodgers. And so you're shooting to still overtake him, and you're the young gun out there. You're Justin Fields. It's very much, in his and Getsy's hands, so to speak, the direction of this team for the next year. But as far as expectations are concerned, it's certainly going to be one where he's going to take his lumps again, because he didn't get consistency. You hope that he plays the majority of the schedule this upcoming season, and he takes his lumps, but he also learns a lot and just continues to put up better numbers. We keep comparing him to, Josh Allen or Donovan McNabb. He's still Justin Fields at the end of the day. He's gonna compare himself only as far as those other guys can take him, and he's going to be his own man and try to be that next best Bears quarterback, the next best Bears quarterback since like a Jay Cutler at this point, which always hurts me to hear. But yeah, he's as far as the record goes, I can't even predict right now. I think a 500 season would be a huge win for them. There's no expectations for them to make the playoffs right now and make a lot of noise, but that's why you suit up on Sundays and Thursdays and Mondays and Saturdays sometimes. And it's anyone's guess.
I just want, like I said, stay relatively healthy, especially these young guys that you really need to take a solid look at. You hope that some like the offensive line gels, and you can find 5 guys that you feel really good about consistently. Those are the wins in the season that you're looking for, right? You're hoping that the 2 guys you drafted in the second round can shore up that secondary and make them one of the most potent secondaries in the NFL going forward. Because again, being able to being able to put the offense on a short field and being able to hopefully create a culture of takeaways again, where you can get Justin Fields playing on plus side of field and get him more opportunities for red zones and for touchdown. Well, that makes him, that puts him in a better position to succeed, as well as, his up and coming offensive weapons as well.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the NBA Finals, Ross. And
real quick, just because Nomad's thoughts there. It would be awesome, number one, if Justin Fields was on the cover of Madden. Hopefully there is no more Madden curse anymore, a la the Peyton Hillis days and some of the other guys that have been on Madden. Hey, Tooch, how you doing? But shout out to Madden for making the right call in putting John Madden on the cover of this year's edition. Again, it seems like ages ago, but we did lose John Madden. RIP to him. I remember playing the original Madden. That's how old I am. So it'd be really cool to see. This is the first time he's been on the cover, I believe, since that edition, or pretty close to that edition right after it. So it's really cool to see that again. I hope that they bring the original play-by-play from Madden back into the game this year. I think that'd be really cool and really nostalgic as well. But shout out to him. Shout out to them for that honor. And how many 12 and 13-year-olds do you think will be looking at the cover this year? It's like, who the hell is that guy? And why is he on the cover of my game?
Yeah, they won't know who John Madden is, unfortunately. But yeah, those of us old enough to remember, certainly him actually calling NFL games and then creating that franchise too of video games that just is taken over. It's very fitting that he's on the cover for sure. Very nice. Very nice tribute.
Absolutely.
Right now on to the NBA Finals.
Let's do it.
Warriors versus the Celtics.
Yes.
As far as the losers go, I know that the winner has had to go through Jimmy Butler and the Heat over the past few years, so that could be telling in itself. It might be the Celtics' year.
Or every time Kendrick puts an album out, the Warriors
That-
have won the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I love those. Those are so funny. Every year he's putting out an album, the damn year. Yep.
Mhm.
And then Pimp a Butterfly. You're
Mhm.
exactly right, Ross. So which one do you take? One of them's got to be wrong.
One of them's
But
got to be wrong.
With the Warriors, obviously just blowing out the Mavericks like you expected and I expected, with a young Luka-led team only stealing one from them in that series. Against the Celtics now, it's a toss-up to me in that they both are pretty equipped to face each other as far as the offensive firepower. When you look at on the Warrior side of things with Steph Curry, and you look at Klay Thompson, the Splash Brothers, and then you look at the scoring output that they have, and then couple in Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole and company, and Draymond, if he continues to facilitate like he has been and take the shots, big shots when he needs to, going up against a really strong Celtics team that has been, a great surprise, I think, for a lot of people, but not to be unexpected because of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and how they have been so close for so long to get to this point. And there's a lot of sort of rental guys out there that have also been, like an Al Horford, for instance, who has been chasing a ring for so long. He was with some great Hawks teams and then floated around, and now he's found a home in Boston. It should be one of the better finals on paper that we think. And I think a lot of people knock you too, Ross, knock the physicality and just the slow pace of the Heat and Celtics. And I mean, it was great in that it seemed a little old school. The refs let them play a bit more. And then, on the other side, the Warriors were going to get a bit of rest and gear up for whoever they had to play, whether it be the Heat or the Celtics. And both those teams have been pretty close before. Obviously, the Heat had went to the finals a couple years ago. So I think, I will give some predictions towards the end here, but what do you like in the matchup with these guys? Who has an immediate edge to you?
Yeah, well, immediately what I like is you get number one offense in the best ball movement team that we've seen within the last 10 years in the Golden State Warriors. Nobody moves the basketball like them from side to side and gets guys open. Nobody moves around the court within an offense like Steph Curry and draws in so much of the defense to him, which opens up more opportunities for guys like Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole and other guys on the team. Andrew Wiggins is there as well. But they're facing arguably the best defensive team in basketball in the Boston Celtics, and that's led by Marcus Smart, who is the defensive player of the year right now. I'd be really curious to see how healthy Robert Williams is, because I think he's a huge part to this series. He really did not look healthy near the end there of that Miami Heat series, and I think that it hurt them a lot. But you hit it on the head. Al Horford's been playing out of his mind. He looks like he's 7 years younger than what he is right now. It's been fantastic. But yeah. I wonder if the Warriors have too much offensive firepower for the Celtics to be able to keep up with. And are you able to chase Steph Curry around, in screens and stuff like that, and get into a track meet with this Warriors team where you have a guy like Jordan Poole. He literally looks like a track star to me. He's like very long and lean, and he gets up and down the court so quickly. And the Celtics have come off of 2 grueling 7-game series back-to-back where it was physical. The Bucks, they beat the crap out of each other, right? That was a physical series. You go right into it against the Heat, and it was just ugly, like street brawl basketball. And then all of a sudden, you play this team that Golden State, which is the exact opposite. They're like poetry in motion, and they move the ball, and they flow, and they run and get up and down the court. And, I think the Celtics needed these few days off because, you got to get ready out in San Francisco because, they're coming. And I think Steph Curry and the Warriors, that core group is kind of saying, listen, we need this title. We need this for our legacy. We need to show you that we can win one more without Kevin Durant. I think Steph Curry really wants to tie LeBron James and be one away from Kobe Bryant in terms of titles. And, I wonder if a team that's young, like Jason Tatum and the Celtics, are they ready for that? Are they ready for everything that comes with the big stage and starting on a little bit later games and the Jimmy Kimmel stuff and the stars that show up and being out in San Francisco in that stadium, which isn't the Oracle like the old stadium, but can still get very loud. And you're playing against a team with some real championship pedigree, and arguably one of the best head coaches in the league, who also has been there as a player himself, so he knows how to handle the moment.
Yeah, Steve Kerr's been there before, and from again the Popovich coaching tree, we got Ime Udoka too, who was playing against Steph Curry back in his playing days. It's a fun matchup, man. I think that again the Celtics with that storyline, you look at Jason Tatum and how he's been one of a lot of people after this playoff run have put him in the top 10 of players, and how could you not? I mean, the guy who looked up to Kobe so much and plays so well, who moves so well and has such great ball movement for a guy who's 6'8", 6'7", something like that, who's so long, plays great defense, plays both ends of the floor, a true leader. And Jaylen Brown has been very impressive to watch too, and he's a great second banana to Jason Tatum. And then those supporting cast guys, it's going to be really telling who wins by, again, who can be the healthiest and who's the better conditioned team at the end of the day. Can Al Horford continue his streak going? Can Robert Williams stay healthy? And Grant Williams get out of foul trouble? Guys like that. And then they have some good role players, some good shooters like Peyton Pritchard, who you'd really look at too, and Tice, who could play some good minutes. And on the Warriors side of things, it's like you talked about, Ross. It's Curry and Clay and Draymond have been here before. So what are they going to do? They're going to obviously play super well at home and on the road like they have been, and use that experience to their advantage after being to the finals and winning multiple championships at this point. Andrew Wiggins, he's hungry. And then, that versatility that the Warriors have with their multiple lineups, I think will cause a lot of problems for the Celtics when you look at it too, even though the Celtics can try and go small as well. But you look at guys like Otto Porter, you might see, I think Andre Iguodala is expected to maybe play. He's completely out. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't even have a spot on the court. He, as an old guy,
he's like a Udonis Haslem now. He might as well be one of those guys who looks like he's all pissed, like he played 40 minutes. But yeah, you look at the important guys who have been playing, like Kevon Looney, who's also been to multiple finals at this point too, and Jordan Poole. But it's going to be who can outpace the other team. I think you talked a bit about the Warriors arena versus TD Garden in Boston, both just incredibly tough places to play.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, a couple red flags from both sides for both teams is, number one, the Warriors sometimes can get a little bit of complacent, and they can seem like they're bored out there. They do lead the league in turnovers, and they turn the ball over a lot. You can't do that against this Boston Celtics team, because they will make you pay for it. The Warriors were down 55 points one time in a game, in a playoff game this year against Memphis, that didn't even have John Morant on the court. That's a huge red flag, right, for a team that wants to win the championship. On the flip side of it, I thought that the Celtics should have closed out that Miami Heat team a long time ago. It didn't need to go 7 games. They should have wrapped that up in 6 and when they were at home. And for them to not be able to do that against that shorthanded Miami Heat team. Listen, that Heat team had Tyler Hero on one leg. He wasn't healthy. Jimmy Butler was doing all the heavy lifting. Kyle Lowry looks like he ate 45 Twinkies and then showed up on a basketball court. It just wasn't, Duncan Robinson wasn't even playing. He couldn't even get on the court. And so that's a little bit of a red flag for me. And watching that game on Sunday, it was an exciting game, but there's no way the Celtics should have blown like a 15-point lead that they did. And if Jimmy Butler hits that 3, we might be having a different conversation today about who's in the NBA Finals. So there's some huge glaring holes to me with the Celtics too. They get very complacent at times. And for me, at the end of the day, just this comes down to Steph, Clay, and Draymond. And you talk about 3 Hall of Famers who their legacy is on the line. And what is Steph Curry going to do to step up and say, I'm one of the 10 best players of all time, and I'm going to show you in this NBA Finals right here? Because if he wins this NBA Finals and he gets an NBA Finals MVP, just like he got the Western Conference MVP, Put him in the top 10 best players of all time. The guy has revolutionized the game. He's the best shooter of all time. He's got 4 rings now. He's a back-to-back MVP. You have to put his name in among the greats that we've ever seen ever.
Best point guard of all time at that point.
You know what? It's
I can't argue against it, man.
right. Point guard is such a relative term now. It's so subjective. Like we see it now. He's a point guard, but Draymond Green
position, yeah.
Draymond Green does all. He runs the play, But what do you want your point guard to be? Do you want your point guard to be Steph Curry? Yeah, please. Or do you want him to be Isaiah Thomas or Magic Johnson or John Stockton or Jason Kidd? Right? Like it's kind of like, what do you want your point guard to be? For me, for this day and age, give me the guy that can pull up from 35 feet and hit those threes and draws every single person on the defense towards you because he's extending the court.
He started this whole trend, man. People often forget that of looking down to youth level, and now how guys like Ja Morant and Trae Young, guys like that, who take those ridiculous shots as well, just like Steph, who is just, we forget too, just early 30s and still has a lot of ball left to play, I feel like, at this point. And he's a transcendent player for a good reason. So this could just really further cement his legacy. And I know that either one, I'd say, either one of these teams, you probably would have led towards, if you're the passive fan, you would lean towards the Bucks and Suns going back towards it. But there's a reason they've played through and had this great experience across both these teams to get this position. It's interesting. Oh yeah, sorry, Tooch. That's no good. I can't catch COVID through the computer, which is nice. But stay healthy, my friend.
Stay healthy.
I would say, with the finals, it's always a weird schedule. So it also doesn't create a ton of consistency. It'll tip off tomorrow. They get a ton of rest, which is good or bad. You ask a player, they'd give you different responses. So they play tomorrow. The next game is Sunday. They're off until like Thursday again. So I don't really like that, but I get why they're doing it because it's ABC and it's the NBA and they're trying to maximize their viewership.
You want your best players like fresh legs and stuff because you want these games to be like good basketball games, right? I think a big reason why Jimmy Butler missed that 3 on Sunday night is he was just gas, and he was probably in his mind like, look, man, I can't send this to overtime. I don't have 5 more minutes left in me. I'm leaving it all on the court right now, and that's why he pulled up for 3. So you do want these guys on your biggest stage as well rested as possible. I'm okay with the layoff and stuff like that. Even touching back on what Nomad said, I appreciate what the Warriors did, which was they retooled and they rebuilt on the fly, but they did it organically, meaning they went out there and they got Jordan Poole, who's a G League guy. We haven't even seen Wiseman on the court, who was drafted like top 2 overall, but he's going to be a big part of their team next year. Kuminga has been an awesome player. They got him in the first round as well. They got Gary Payton the second. Obviously, we know about his old man. They were able to get a lot of homegrown guys to go with this older core. And I really appreciate that, especially when you look at, I hate to always bring LeBron back into things, but you look what LeBron does, which is
here.
Right. LeBron will constantly bring in old veteran, high-priced names. It just doesn't work, right? I'm taking Jordan Poole 10 times out of 10 over Russell Westbrook right now, and Kuminga and stuff like that. Even a guy like Andrew Wiggins, who they were able to pick up as well. The guy started the All-Star game this year. He's been outstanding in this playoffs. Outstanding in this playoffs. It's just such a savvy organization there. They're doing things right. They remind me of the NBA version of the Patriots at this point. Before Tom Brady left.
Before Tom Brady left. They're that new Western Conference power and a dynasty. They're the new Spurs in the way you look at it, the way they've spread it out over this past decade and been able to roll with the punches and build around that central core of a few great players. It's eerily similar, right? Where you look at, a Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Manu, and then you look at certainly it's a lot more firepower with Klay Thompson and Steph and Draymond and volatile personalities. And kind of an interesting segue. What the fuck was that all about with Kevin Durant and Draymond going at each other? Is just like a total misunderstanding and just went so south that Draymond just loves to pick a fight.
Those two guys, they are They will tell you they're friends. They've done a podcast together, but I think we also know that those two guys are the reason why probably Kevin Durant is not on the Warriors anymore. Is there is no love lost between those two, and they're both very, very highly emotional guys who can tend to jump to conclusions from time to time, and that's what you're going to get out of both of them. So, they're two of the NBA's biggest personalities. They remind me a lot of just like Barkley and Shaq on the set and stuff like that, just kind of throwing jabs at each other, but they're still friends and stuff like that. But I think Kevin Durant probably has to be in a tough spot right now too, because he thought he was going to a better situation in Brooklyn and with Kyrie and stuff like that. And now, they're in a tailspin. I don't know where they go from here, because you can't give Kyrie Irving a max contract. I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. And I bet you he wishes that he might have stayed in Oakland, and he could have won 3-4 more rings with Steph Curry, So, what's his legacy going to be like going forward now, especially if Steph Curry wins another ring without him?
Right. You don't really know what's going to happen with Kevin Durant at this point. When he ended up in Brooklyn with Kyrie, you're in a big stage and you're still the guy. But, it's also like when the Nets initially, what sparked this whole run with the Celtics, right? That trade that landed Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and it was a big trade package. Like, put them back in the finals. They're here. You trade for the future. You look ahead to the future and rebuilding. And I don't think the Nets, again, they were looking at, it's again, like you mentioned with LeBron, when you put LaMarcus Aldridge and James Harden, all these guys who were stars, and Blake Griffin, and top picks, but what does it amount to? It doesn't translate to good basketball and winning franchises. So these two teams are very well matched up. I'm super pumped for it. I'd say Warriors in 6.
I say Warriors in 7.
Warriors in 7. We deserve a game 7 out of this.
I think so. I think it'll be fun. I have a hard time thinking that Boston could get back on a flight to go to San Francisco and win a game there. So I've got Warriors in 7.
All right. Something or nothing with speaking of Jaylen Brown and Aaron Donald signing with the
Donda
Sports, the marketing company.
Well, listen, put it like this, right? What better person on the planet right now can market all of their products better than Kanye West, who can have a stadium tour without an album out and just play random songs off the album and sell out these tours, by the way. Have a stem cell player of an album on it that he's charging you $250 for. A pair of Yeezys on the aftermarket will go for $500-$600. Ginormous Balenciaga boots for $2,000, however much those cost, that sell out quickly, and Gap clothing that you get. The guy is a marketing genius, right? So if you're just trying to purely build your brand and market off of that, I would probably hitch myself to it. I would eventually guess that he's got a lot of very smart people around him as well. He was very close with Virgil Abloh, obviously, before Virgil passed away, and a lot of huge he's got a lot of huge connections in the fashion industry and every kind of other industry as well. He knows every hip hop artist on the planet. He just finished doing the album, obviously, for Pusha T, and he's wrapping up the album with The Game right now. So I think Jaylen Brown and Aaron Donald, from a marketing standpoint, will be in good hands with Kanye West. And I expect them to be wearing some Adidas gear very, very soon, and dropping a hot commercial with the Kanye West track in it, right? Which, again, only can help you build your brand.
He's had some interesting visual, and we know Kanye's pivoted to an icon, and all of this artistry is amounted to him being a fashion icon, pairing up with the Kardashians. That'll help boost your followers and boost your marketing kind of standpoint of things. And he's been an entrepreneur for a while, so it makes a lot of sense for guys to jump ship for a marketing company like this, and to get those damn Balenciaga boots out of here.
It's no different than Rock Nation Sports, right? That Jay-Z has had, and even LeBron James has clutched.
It's already recognized.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's no different.
That Kanye verse was probably one of the most useless verses on that Pusha T album. It was like he just wanted the feature, and that was it.
It was.
I
I
didn't
like
understand.
the verse he had with on Fabio's album though. I'll give him that one. The song with Alicia
Oh yeah.
Keys on it. That's a good verse.
But you figured it'd have something killer, but then you look at Ye, or I'm sorry, if you look at Daytona and his verse on that too,
Yes.
he's I don't know, he's pivoted. Maybe he's I don't know between Donda and between his sports marketing agency and everything else. Who knows what his where his priorities are at besides
Mhm.
dissing Skeet Davidson.
Skeet, who just left SNL, and I have no
Skeet,
clue what he did on
he
SNL
did.
for like 7 years.
He didn't do a damn thing. He showed up for like the last one. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. He would do those. He would do the video shorts. That's about it. He would
Usually
spoof
when you
Eminem songs.
he would
That's
do like exactly. Usually when you're on SNL, you have your own like character that you can like have a movie with. Like Pete Davidson's character on SNL was Pete Davidson. He was just playing Pete Davidson every Saturday.
yeah. It's just
So
a stoned, lanky
yeah,
dude. That's about it.
more shout outs should go to
Ross.
Kate McKinnon for leaving. She has been awesome and she had a
Oh,
great run on the
and
show.
80 Bryant.
And Amy
Yeah. Oh
Bryant
my
as well.
God.
100%.
Those two were absolutely. And then Keenan will die there.
Keenan will never leave there, as he should. He should stay there as long as he wants.
Why would you leave? Stay
I,
as long as you can.
I will laugh at every Steve Harvey Keenan Thompson sketch on SNL
Hilarious.
until the day I die.
So good. Is David Ortiz also very good?
David Ortiz is good.
Eat a big Dominican lunch. Ross, give me your impressions on the White Sox real quick before we dive into our top five. And
it's pain. It's pain.
23 and 24. It's pain.
Yeah, they're losing right now, 3-5 in front of me right here. They're in Toronto. It's tough. You know, this was a team that we had World Series aspirations, and they can't stay healthy. Luis Robert just came back from COVID. Eloy Jimenez got hurt in rehab start, and hopefully he can start rehab again. We haven't seen Lance Lynn yet, even though we said that he was supposed to show up hopefully end of May. You know, hopefully he can come back in another week or so. Dallas Keuchel got released because his arm is made out of noodles now. And then just lost Tim Anderson for 3 weeks with a strained groin. So the hits just keep on coming for this team. So I mean, listen, you have to hope that they can get healthy and you could tread water until then and stay around 500. And then you hope that come July-ish, you could just go on a run. And that's what they need to do. They need to go on a run. They need to beat the shit out of teams in the AL Central. They had a winning record in May, which was awesome. But they finished April 1-10 against the AL Central. That's not going to cut it. You can't lose to the Cleveland Indians and the Royals and the Twins of the world if you want to win that division. So I still hold out hope for them, but man, they got to get their shit together. I'm not a huge fan of Tony La Russa. I think he's the wrong guy for the job, and I think it shows week in and week out.
Yeah, it seems like both a managerial standpoint and then the health aspect is so tough, but get it out of the way now, with your hitters, especially Tim Anderson and Luis Robert, like you mentioned, guys like that who are going to provide a lot of offensive firepower. It's very early on, so you can't get too discouraged. And the fact that they're 500, I mean, you look at obviously the Cubs and the North Side aspect of things, they're screwed. I mean, you're looking at the trade deadline, and they're more concerned about the concessions in Wrigley and the restaurant bar scene around it from that aspect of things. But man, getting blown out by the Red Sox, 16 runs in consecutive games was just ridiculous. But at least the weather's turning for them, so that'll be nice. We'll wrap up the show. First of all, Ray Liotta, just tragic, just so tough to hear that he passed. And obviously his role in Goodfellas was huge, but also he had so many, we talked about maybe in the pre-show, Ross, pivoting to, top 5 of Ray Liotta. In movies, you could get really obscure, and he's had some great roles, certainly, besides Goodfellas. I loved him as Johnny Depp's dad, as George Young's dad in Blow. He was a pretty good character for a pretty minimal part, as it were. But he did a lot of comedy, man. He was on The League. He was doing SpongeBob. He was doing all sorts of series. He really just worked his ass off throughout his career. Look at his IMDb page, and it's staggering. But you talk about the outpouring of everybody's just being so saddened by him dying suddenly in the Dominican Republic. If I die, I want to die in the Dominican Republic, first of all. But Field of Dreams, Goodfellas, all his co-stars in those films were very touched by it and had very touching tributes, I should say, Sigourney Weaver talking about it, and his co-star in Goodfellas, who I'm forgetting her name right now. Really just Lauren Bracco. That's
Lorraine Bracco, yes.
Lauren Bracco came. Yeah, just saying the favorite part of Goodfellas was him. So it's tough. I mean, his legacy is certainly cemented. And most recently, you're talking about movies, The Many Saints of Newark, which I didn't see, and I think it was forgettable for a lot of people. I heard he was a saving grace for it, though, for the most part. So
yeah, he was an outstanding actor. He's a guy who, you felt like coming out of Goodfellas probably would have been one of the 5 biggest stars in the world. It didn't quite work out that way, but he did. My favorite film genre is the garbage crime movies, which are like kind of like those B-level crime films, dramas. They're a little formulaic, but you know what you're going to get. They're great to watch like on a Friday night, stuff like that. You grab a beer. He did some awesome garbage crime movies. Unlawful Entry was a terrific movie. He did like Turbulence and Unforgettable. Copland, I told you about earlier. Yeah. I'm going to rewatch Copland probably this Friday night because I haven't seen it in such a long time. He was in Identity with John Cusack, which is a very underrated kind of thriller, horror film. The guy was just, like you said, his IMDb is nuts. Just a ton of movies that he did. Even The Place Behind the Pines was an awesome movie as well. That's a Ryan Gosling film that he's in as well. So just a terrific actor. The guy just was working nonstop all the way up until the end. It's sad. We lose a guy who, at least that you have his art to live on. And you always have that iconic role. I mean, Henry Hill has got to be one of the most iconic movie characters of all time. Of course, it's based on a true story. Right. But for as good as he was as the early part of Goodfellas there, where he's playing like that young, up-and-coming mobster guy, my favorite is when he's just like a coked out mess, like just rolling around for the last
looking for choppers.
Movie. Yeah, I'm like, God, looking for choppers. He is just a train wreck, and he plays that role perfectly. The scene where Karen flushes the coke down the toilet and he asks her why he's doing it, he just breaks down. He's yelling at her, and I'm like, it's just amazing stuff. He was just such a talented guy. So we lost a good one for sure.
We did, and iconic, so quotable, Goodfellas. But yeah, that was quite the turn and quite the journey towards the end, where he's ratting on his buddies and everybody's dying, and he's just a coked out mess and just a regular guy, regular schmo. And so bringing us to the top 5, Ross. The Top Gun is out. There's a lot of great reviews about Top Gun, by the way. I got to get out and see it very soon. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Ross, but it's on my list.
It is. I want to see it this weekend. Of course, I was moving last weekend, so I didn't get to see it opening day, but it did set a record for biggest Memorial Day opening of all time, which is super impressive considering that we're still in a little bit of a pandemic here. So Tom Cruise still has his fastball, even though he's pivoted now to just being like white Jackie Chan, where he's doing all his own stunts and jumping out of airplanes and flying real helicopters and buildings and stuff like that. The guy is just, he is at almost 6 years old, or I think he is 6 years old now. He's becoming probably our most bankable action star that we have right now, right? Like if Tom Cruise is an action movie, you probably feel pretty good about that movie being good. And he's going to give you something legit, which I appreciate. I'm so sick and tired of the CGI bullshit that we're getting now from the superhero movies and from these Fast and Furious movies and stuff like that. It's good to actually see a guy say, I want real life action. And so I appreciate what Tom Cruise is still doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. I knew you were talking about how it just took you out of Doctor Strange, for example. Marvel is just so CGI heavy. We never really see, besides like indie movies, we don't see a lot of true sort of action movies that aren't just absolutely CGI heavy, that are just shot on green screen. I know we were talking to Aldo about it. And Jennifer Connelly's in this new one. It's going to be great. Val Kilmer coming back. I know John Hamm. Good cast. Yes, Iceman. I know it was great. What was the young man's name? Glenn Powell. I was reading about him, and he was talking about how Tom Cruise inspired him to become an actor. And he was, Glenn Powell auditioned for the part of Goose's son that Miles Teller got and didn't get it. And Tom Cruise sat down with him and convinced him to take this other role. And it's going to be I'm excited to see it. I haven't seen a bad review so far. So leading us to the star of Top Gun is Tom Cruise, and we got a top 5, Ross.
Top 5.
So what's your 5 going?
Well,
5
this was extremely difficult for me because Tom Cruise is, listen, the guy is gone on since the 80s, right? We were introduced to him basically with Risky Business with him and Rebecca De Mornay on there, and he's been in our lives ever since then. So there's a lot of movies that are left off my list that I loved. I love Risky Business. I love Cocktail for as cheesy it is. I like Interview with a Vampire, and I can go on and on. Edge of Tomorrow is one of my favorite sci-fi movies to come out in a long time.
wow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's got him and Emily Blunt in it. But to start off at my number 5, I'm going to give you a movie that I thought he should have been nominated for an Oscar for and should have won, and that's Jerry Maguire. I don't know anybody else who could have been Jerry Maguire, who could have pulled that off the way he did. It's a very versatile movie. It's a sports film. It's a rom-com. It's funny as hell. It can be sad. It can be touching at times. I thought he was absolutely outstanding in that movie. Opposite him and Renee Zellweger, and of course we know Cuba Gooding Jr. won an Oscar for that. But Jerry Maguire is one of the most rewatchable Tom Cruise movies. It's absolutely awesome. You can jump in at any time and watch it, and he's fantastic in that movie. That's my number 5.
That's number 5. My goodness. Well, I'd go straight to Cocktail if I'm looking at 5.
Ooh,
It inspired me to be the bartender, for God's sakes. Come on.
Cosmos Law.
That and as far as just cheesy roles like that and Tropic Thunder are so great to see Tom Cruise and Tropic Thunder. If everybody remembers how underrated this movie is too, but I mean, he was outstanding as Les Grossman and the fat suit and dancing out there, and he had some great one-liners in that too. He was very funny for a guy who's, I think has been seemed as a little bit kind of prickly for a lot of people and aggressive. Like, he knows his comedic side, and it's come out recently with that. So Cocktail would probably be 5 for me. Number 4 would be, A Few Good Men.
Ooh.
Yeah, that would certainly be there. Oh, look at that. The skills.
Yes.
Is that up there for you, Ross? Few Good Men?
Few Good Men is number 2 on my list.
Okay.
Number 4 on my list is, hold on, where's my list at? I had it right here. Yep, that's right. Number 4 on my list is the movie that started off a franchise that he has kept going very strong to this day, and that is the original Mission Impossible. I still think the original Mission Impossible is phenomenal. It's a Brian De Palma film, and Brian De Palma, as you know, has done Carlito's Way and Scarface and a lot of other classic films. It is like the opening scene of the original Mission Impossible where all his crew gets killed. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, it's like 20 years old now. It's an absolutely riveting spy thriller to start the movie, and he's fantastic in the movie. He's in every single scene of the movie. He is carrying the movie. The scene that Aldo has up here right now, where he has to stay quiet and kind of get the little key card thing in there, is just one of the most intense 7-minute like silent scenes that you've seen in an action movie of all time. It's a phenomenal film. I implore everybody to go back. If you're a spy espionage fan, go back and watch the original Mission Impossible. It still holds up to this day. Edge of Tomorrow too, which is phenomenal. I am with you there. It's such an underrated movie. But yeah, Mission Impossible is next on my list.
Edge of Tomorrow, the one that is like a Groundhog Day sort of thing, where he has to continue to repeat. Yes. It's ironic. He said you can watch it multiple times. It's what you're doing.
He keeps dying over and over again. Yep.
Anything with Emily Blunt too, she's fantastic. Yeah, this scene was incredible. What's number 3 for you, Ross?
Number 3 on my list is so you might know I'm a huge Michael Mann fan. I love Michael Mann movies. Heat is up there as well as one of my favorite movies all time. So I had to get a Michael Mann movie on my list. Collateral is such an awesome Tom Cruise role. My God, him and Jamie Foxx. You get a little Jada Pinkett in there. You get a little Mark Ruffalo in there as well. But Tom Cruise just being the hitman going all over the city of LA with Jamie Foxx chauffeuring him around and killing people is absolutely fantastic. That role was originally supposed to go to Russell Crowe, and that movie was supposed to originally be directed by Spike Lee. And I think both of those guys would have done a great job with that, but I can't see anybody else at the moment playing that role the way Tom Cruise did. And I think that's one of the few times where you can remember Tom Cruise's career where he's genuinely a bad guy in the movie. Like he's just a bad person in this movie. That's just not something that he normally does. And I think he's absolutely phenomenal in that movie.
All right, give me your top two.
Top two. Number two for me is A Few Good Men. A Few Good Men is still a great movie. I love a good I love a good court scene drama movie. I think he's awesome opposite Demi Moore in the movie. But obviously, I think the scene with him opposite Jack Nicholson, where he's interrogating him, and you can't handle the truth, and you cut him loose, and he's screwed. I think that scene is what made Tom Cruise the mega superstar that he came to be. Because anytime that you can go opposite Jack Nicholson and raise your voice and kind of check him and put him in line, Jack Nicholson is an icon. I think that's what catapulted him to superstar status. And you see from there, you start looking at his IMDb after that movie, it's just hit after hit after hit. They are all rattling off after one after one after that. And I think that's the one that put him there. He's good looking in the movie. He's wearing the suit well. He's kind of walking around. He's got a baseball bat in his hand where he's saying that it helps him think. A Few Good Men's an awesome movie. Another highly rewatchable film.
It is great. And really number one and number two, again, like you talked about, sort of peak Tom Cruise introducing himself to be the superstar that we know is Mission Impossible and Jerry Maguire. So those would be like 1A, 1B for me. And we just talked about those roles just catapulting them to stardom. So number one for you?
It's Top Gun. It's
Top
always
Gun.
It's always Top Gun. Listen, as I was born in 1981, so you can imagine from age 8 until age 12, 13, I watched Top Gun almost nonstop all the time. It was on all the time on cable. It's such a fun film. It's such a fun film to watch. He is awesome in that movie. I can watch it over and over. It still holds up to this day. Obviously, with it having such a huge opening all these years later, is a cult classic. I think it's the ultimate dad movie. I think every dad will probably tell you that they love Top Gun. It's just an unbelievable movie. And shout out to Tom Cruise and Jerry Bruckheimer for making a true classic. And I cannot wait to see the sequel.
It's iconic. It's all, it's not quite my generation is the only reason it's not in the top 5 to me. And there's a lot of cheesiness to it, but it is outstanding. And I think, again, talking about the need for certain special effects and current movies, but this set a high bar for a lot of action movies to come. And I do love the back and forth between Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer and how really Tom Cruise is that villain because he's the one who gets Goose killed, and he's the one who's really just a dangerous co-pilot out there and pilot. So to see him come full circles is cool to see. And again, leads back to this new Top Gun coming out. It's going to be gangbusters.
That's right. You've lost that love and feeling. That's what they sing in the song in the movie. I wanted really hard to get Rain Man on the list. I think Rain Man is a super underrated Tom Cruise performance.
Sure. Last Samurai was good. Yeah.
Last Samurai is good. I think him opposite Dustin Hoffman, who of course won an Oscar for that role, I think is really good as well. And I wanted to shoehorn Interview with a Vampire in there, even though it's not a great movie. I just think Tom Cruise as a scary vampire is just really, really weird and kooky, and I can't believe he took that role. Just like Eyes Wide Shut, he did a Kubrick movie, like Stanley Kubrick before he died. That's his last movie. I mean, he's got some roles on there. He's got a PTA movie on there and Magnolia, which as well. So Tom Cruise has gone out on the limb in his career and takes some really cool roles. I think since he really leaned into the Scientology stuff, he's been more of like this, I'm just going to be a robot and throw myself out of airplanes and stuff like that. He doesn't really take on those roles anymore, but that's okay. I would like to see him like 1 or 2 times before he wraps it up. Maybe do like a Tarantino movie or a Scorsese movie or something like that. I think that would be really cool for him to go back to some of these iconic directors and do one of those prestige parts again before he stops acting.
Yeah, change up from jumping onto planes and off of planes, i.e. Top Gun and Mission Impossible. There's part 1 and part 2 of Mission Impossible, the next installment in the franchise coming up soon. So he's got a lot left in the tank. Talk about a guy who will die on a film set. It's unbelievable. His work ethic too. It's incredible. Doing all his own stunts. We have run out of time, run out of show. Thanks to everybody for listening in and watching us here on Barroom Network YouTube channel. Remember, if you missed any of our previous shows, you didn't catch all of this one, we're on the YouTube channel. We're on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, wherever you get your audio and visuals. I'm at The Real Evan Mack, and Ross is at Ross Read on Twitter and social media. The Amber Heard, Johnny Depp trial's over. Go find a new show, everybody. Science Fiction is next at 9 o'clock. For now, we say peace out. Everybody be good to each other out there. So long.
Peace.